Vora, an experienced alien explorer, sat at the helm of her sleek starship, drifting through the cold emptiness of deep space. Her ship was silent except for the occasional hum of the engines as she scanned the void for any sign of life or anything unusual. It had been a long journey, with nothing but stars and darkness to keep her company. But today, something was different. Her sensors picked up a faint, barely audible signal, breaking the usual silence. A distress signal. This wasn't the typical distress call she was used to hearing. The signal was old, encrypted, and coming from a sector of space that hadn't been explored in centuries. It was a mystery, one that intrigued Vora deeply. Most of the galaxy had written off this region, considering it abandoned and unimportant. No alien species had ventured here in eons, and human records showed little about it. The sector was thought to be forgotten, yet here was a signal, ancient, desperate, and somehow still alive. Vora couldn't ignore it. Her curiosity pushed her to investigate. As she decrypted the message, the symbols seemed to shift and warp on her screen. The distress signal spoke of danger, of a ship stranded and in need of rescue. But there was something about it that didn't sit right. There were no clear origins, no clear coordinates. It was almost like someone had deliberately hidden the source, masking its true location. Could this be a trap? Vora muttered to herself, staring at the cryptic message. She had heard stories of aliens luring explorers into dangerous traps, but the pull of uncovering something that had been lost for so long was too strong. Vora, driven by the thrill of discovery, decided to follow the signal. She set her course, heading straight into the unknown. As she approached the source of the signal, her ship's sensors began to pick up something that made her pause. A massive energy signature, unlike anything she had ever encountered, appeared on her radar. It was hidden beneath a layer of asteroids, making it difficult to detect. The signal grew stronger as she moved closer, and the readings were growing more intense by the second. Her heart raced. There was no turning back now. Suddenly, without warning, the ship's systems began to malfunction. Lights flickered, and the ship's control systems wavered. Vora's hands tightened on the controls as a strange force pulled at the ship. It was as if something was trying to draw her in, something far more powerful than anything she had ever felt. Her ship's AI tried to stabilize, but it was no use. The sensors went haywire, and Vora had to fight to maintain control. Her pulse quickened as the ship veered dangerously close to a field of sharp debris. The asteroids seemed to move as if they had a life of their own, making it nearly impossible to avoid them. The ship's hull groaned as it scraped against the rocks, and for a brief moment, Vora thought she might lose control completely. She fought against the force pulling her in, her breath shallow as she maneuvered the ship, barely missing collision with a massive asteroid. The ship stabilized, but the damage was done. Vora's heart pounded in her chest, and the sudden rush of adrenaline left her shaky. What had just happened? There was no explanation for the force she had felt. It was as though something had been waiting for her. She sat back in her chair, her eyes locked on the display in front of her. Her sensors had finally locked onto something huge beneath the surface of the asteroid field. Vora's jaw dropped as she saw it, a massive ancient structure half buried beneath the surface. The readings indicated that it was something far more advanced than anything her species had ever built, and it wasn't from any known alien race. It was clearly human, though its design was unlike anything she had ever imagined. Her curiosity overwhelmed her again. The Dreadnought, whatever it was, had been hidden for a reason. It could be a remnant of a forgotten human warship, something far more advanced than anything in her time. It was a discovery that would change everything she knew about humanity. The question now was whether she should explore further. As she looked at the wreckage, she realized this could be the end of her journey, or even her life. What if it was a trap, set by some unknown force to lure in unwary explorers? What if she was walking straight into danger? But the allure of discovering a lost piece of human history, something that could reshape the galaxy, was too much to ignore. Vora was faced with a choice. Should she proceed and uncover the secrets of the wreckage? or turn back before it was too late. She knew that stepping onto this ancient structure could end her career as an explorer, or worse, it could cost her life. But there was no turning back now. The pull of the unknown was far stronger than her fear. She made up her mind. With a final deep breath, Vora steered her ship toward the surface of the asteroid. As she descended, she knew she was about to uncover something that would change the galaxy forever, whether she was ready for it or not. The future of humanity, and perhaps her own, was about to be rewritten. Vora's heart raced as she carefully navigated through the wreckage. The space around her was eerily quiet, but the silence was broken only by the soft hum of her ship's systems and the faint crackling of static from the wreckage. Her mind buzzed with questions. What kind of ship had she stumbled upon? It was unlike anything she had ever seen. The twisted metal and fractured hull gave little away, but the design was unmistakably human. She stepped closer, running her gloved hand along the cold surface. It was sleek and advanced, far beyond anything Vora had imagined humanity capable of creating. The structure was immense, larger than any warship Vora had ever studied. Its hull was marked with intricate, yet utilitarian designs, built for efficiency and power. The sheer scale of the ship, now half buried beneath the surface of the asteroid, was a testament to its creator's ambition. The wreckage hinted at the might this ship once commanded. There were sections that had been shattered and others that remained perfectly intact, preserving the secrets within. As she ventured further into the ship, Vora noticed something unusual. Small systems began to flicker to life as she passed them, and the air grew colder. She was deep inside now, surrounded by the wreckage of what could have been the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. Her sensors buzzed with energy readings. It was as if something had been waiting for her to come closer. And then, without warning, the ship's AI activated. The sudden voice echoed through the cold, silent corridors, sending a shiver down Vora's spine. It was mechanical, cold, and emotionless. Warning: unauthorized access detected. It said, the voice crisp and sharp. Vora froze, her eyes scanning the darkened room for any signs of movement. There was no way to be sure where the voice was coming from, but it seemed to fill the space around her. The AI continued, its tone neutral but unyielding. This vessel is the Dreadnought of humanity, built in secret to protect Earth from an existential threat. Any attempt to engage the systems will result in immediate consequences. Vora felt a chill crawl up her spine. Her mind raced. She had known this ship was old, but the revelation that it was a human-built warship, designed in secret for a galaxy-threatening force, left her stunned. The AI was speaking as though the warship's purpose was still relevant, like it was waiting for a war that might never come. Her fingers hovered over the console in front of her, unsure of what to do next. Should she trust this machine? Could she access more information about the ship's purpose? She chose to continue. The temptation to understand the human creation was far too powerful. As she interfaced with the AI, more data began to appear on her screen. Images flashed before her eyes, showing schematics of the ship's layout, weapon systems, and internal structures. It was like reading a history of humanity's last stand, a glimpse into their desperate bid for survival against an overwhelming force. The ship's weapon systems were like nothing Vora had ever seen before. Massive cannons capable of destroying entire fleets with a single blast, cloaking devices that rendered the ship invisible to the most advanced sensors, and shield technology that could withstand blows from the strongest weapons in the galaxy. Vora was mesmerized as she pored over the data. This ship had been designed not just as a defense mechanism, but as an all-out weapon of war, meant to annihilate any force that dared to threaten Earth. The AI's voice continued, its words now filled with a hint of grim pride. Humanity's greatest strength lies in its adaptability. This vessel was constructed not just to fight but to survive. It was meant to be a last resort, a weapon that would turn the tide in a war that would decide the fate of all life in the galaxy. Vora's disbelief began to turn to respect. Humanity, a species once thought weak and inferior by many, had built something that rivaled or even surpassed the most advanced alien technology. She had never seen anything like this before. The ship's design was a masterpiece of engineering, capable of feats that no other race could match. She had come to this wreckage thinking she would find the ruins of a forgotten civilization. But instead, she had found evidence of humanity's genius, a weapon so advanced it could shake the foundations of the galaxy. As the AI revealed more of the ship's history, Vora's view of humanity began to shift. She had always considered humans to be a primitive species, unworthy of much attention. But now she saw them in a different light. Their ingenuity was undeniable. They had created something that could stand toe-to-toe with the greatest alien forces in the galaxy. She saw battle plans flash across her screen, outlining humanity's strategy against their most formidable enemies. The plans detailed operations to outsmart and outfight technologically superior races. They were built for resilience, for survival. Humanity had crafted this ship not just to fight, but to win. And if this ship had ever been deployed, the galaxy would have been forced to reckon with humanity's power. Vora now understood the importance of what she had uncovered. The ship's AI had revealed its role in Earth's defense, an unstoppable force that could have altered the course of history. The Dreadnought was a weapon like no other, designed to protect humanity at all costs. She had thought she was the only one out here in the cold emptiness of space, but now she realized she had stumbled upon something much bigger than herself. For the first time, Vora looked at humanity not with contempt, but with a deep respect. The humans had crafted something that was not only technologically superior, but also a symbol of their survival instincts. If humanity ever returned, they would be a force to be reckoned with. Vora was left with a powerful realization. The galaxy had underestimated humans, and this discovery was proof of that mistake. She had come seeking answers, but now she had far more than she ever imagined. Vora's mind raced as she absorbed the full implications of her discovery. The massive Dreadnought, with its advanced technology, had been a weapon of unimaginable power. She had never fully understood the true extent of human ingenuity until now. However, just as she was processing the gravity of her find, disaster struck. The activation of the ship's AI had triggered an alarm, a sharp, blaring noise that echoed through the wreckage. The system was alerting something far more dangerous than she could have ever imagined. The ship's AI voice cut through the noise, its tone now urgent. Warning: unauthorized activation detected. Alien fleet approaching. Immediate defensive action required. Vora's heart skipped a beat as she ran to the control panel. On her scanner, a mass of ships appeared, large and menacing. She could see them clearly now, their sleek alien designs cutting through space with terrifying precision. They were heading straight toward her, and they were coming fast. The alien fleet was vast, its ships far outnumbering hers. The sight of them made Vora's blood run cold. These aliens were not like the ones she had encountered before. They were known across the galaxy for their ruthlessness, a species that had wiped out entire civilizations with little more than a blink of an eye. Their name alone was enough to send shivers down any sentient being's spine. Vora had heard stories of their conquests, planets reduced to nothing, entire species eradicated, their histories lost to time. Yet, none of them had ever faced humanity's hidden weapon. Vora was trapped. She had no allies, no fleet to back her up, and no chance of survival if the aliens reached her before she could escape. She needed to make a decision, and fast. Should she flee, abandoning the wreckage and the knowledge she had uncovered, or should she take a stand and fight? The stakes were higher than ever. The AI, cold and calculating, seemed to read her thoughts. Reactivating Dreadnought defense systems. Prepare for immediate combat. Vora hesitated for a moment. Could she really rely on this ancient ship? Was its weaponry still functional after all this time? Her options were limited. She could flee into the vast emptiness of space, but the alien fleet would surely track her down. No, she had to fight. She had to make a stand. It was humanity's fight, after all. Vora's fingers hovered over the activation switch, her breath shallow. The AI's voice rang in her ear again, urging her to make a move. Activate cloaking device. Defense systems at full power. She did it. With a swift press of a button, the ship's systems hummed to life. The cold, mechanical voice of the AI filled the cockpit as the ship's cloaking device engaged. Vora watched as the alien fleet closed in on her position, their weapons powered up, ready to unleash destruction. Vora, an experienced alien explorer, sat at the helm of her sleek starship, drifting through the cold emptiness of deep space. Her ship was silent except for the occasional hum of the engines as she scanned the void for any sign of life or anything unusual. It had been a long journey, with nothing but stars and darkness to keep her company. But today, something was different. Her sensors picked up a faint, barely audible signal, breaking the usual silence. A distress signal. This wasn't the typical distress call she was used to hearing. The signal was old, encrypted, and coming from a sector of space that hadn't been explored in centuries. It was a mystery, one that intrigued Vora deeply. Most of the galaxy had written off this region, considering it abandoned and unimportant. No alien species had ventured here in eons, and human records showed little about it. The sector was thought to be forgotten, yet here was a signal, ancient, desperate, and somehow still alive. Vora couldn't ignore it. Her curiosity pushed her to investigate. As she decrypted the message, the symbols seemed to shift and warp on her screen. The distress signal spoke of danger, of a ship stranded and in need of rescue. But there was something about it that didn't sit right. There were no clear origins, no clear coordinates. It was almost like someone had deliberately hidden the source, masking its true location. Could this be a trap? Vora muttered to herself, staring at the cryptic message. She had heard stories of aliens luring explorers into dangerous traps, but the pull of uncovering something that had been lost for so long was too strong. Vora, driven by the thrill of discovery, decided to follow the signal. She set her course, heading straight into the unknown. As she approached the source of the signal, her ship's sensors began to pick up something that made her pause. A massive energy signature, unlike anything she had ever encountered, appeared on her radar. It was hidden beneath a layer of asteroids, making it difficult to detect. The signal grew stronger as she moved closer, and the readings were growing more intense by the second. Her heart raced. There was no turning back now. Suddenly, without warning, the ship's systems began to malfunction. Lights flickered, and the ship's control systems wavered. Vora's hands tightened on the controls as a strange force pulled at the ship. It was as if something was trying to draw her in, something far more powerful than anything she had ever felt. Her ship's AI tried to stabilize, but it was no use. The sensors went haywire, and Vora had to fight to maintain control. Her pulse quickened as the ship veered dangerously close to a field of sharp debris. The asteroids seemed to move as if they had a life of their own, making it nearly impossible to avoid them. The ship's hull groaned as it scraped against the rocks, and for a brief moment, Vora thought she might lose control completely. She fought against the force pulling her in, her breath shallow as she maneuvered the ship, barely missing collision with a massive asteroid. The ship stabilized, but the damage was done. Vora's heart pounded in her chest, and the sudden rush of adrenaline left her shaky. What had just happened? There was no explanation for the force she had felt. It was as though something had been waiting for her. She sat back in her chair, her eyes locked on the display in front of her. Her sensors had finally locked onto something huge beneath the surface of the asteroid field. Vora's jaw dropped as she saw it, a massive ancient structure half buried beneath the surface. The readings indicated that it was something far more advanced than anything her species had ever built, and it wasn't from any known alien race. It was clearly human, though its design was unlike anything she had ever imagined. Her curiosity overwhelmed her again. The Dreadnought, whatever it was, had been hidden for a reason. It could be a remnant of a forgotten human warship, something far more advanced than anything in her time. It was a discovery that would change everything she knew about humanity. The question now was whether she should explore further. As she looked at the wreckage, she realized this could be the end of her journey, or even her life. What if it was a trap, set by some unknown force to lure in unwary explorers? What if she was walking straight into danger? But the allure of discovering a lost piece of human history, something that could reshape the galaxy, was too much to ignore. Vora was faced with a choice. Should she proceed and uncover the secrets of the wreckage, or turn back before it was too late? She knew that stepping onto this ancient structure could end her career as an explorer, or worse, it could cost her life. But there was no turning back now. The pull of the unknown was far stronger than her fear. She made up her mind. In that moment, Vora realized just how powerful this ship truly was. The cloaking device worked like a charm. Her ship disappeared from the enemy scanners, the surrounding space becoming a blur as the advanced technology hid her presence. She was invisible. The enemy ships fired blindly, their shots missing by mere inches as Vora expertly navigated her ship through the debris field, using the asteroid's mass for cover. A pulse of adrenaline surged through her body. She could feel the tension in her bones as she raced through the wreckage, narrowly avoiding a direct hit from one of the alien ships. The enemy was relentless, their pursuit unyielding, but the Dreadnought's cloaking device gave her a fighting chance. Vora pushed the ship to its limits, feeling the weight of the technology at her command. It was a feeling of awe, of power. She wasn't just a lone alien explorer anymore. She was piloting humanity's greatest weapon, and it was more than enough to turn the tide of battle. As she darted through the field of asteroids, Vora realized that humanity's legacy of resistance was far from over. The aliens were closing in, but they hadn't anticipated this. They hadn't accounted for the possibility that humanity's hidden weapon might still be active, still capable of defending itself. She wasn't sure what would happen next, whether she would survive this encounter or whether the aliens would overwhelm her. But she knew one thing for sure. Humanity's fight had never been about surrendering. It had always been about resistance. Even in death, humanity's legacy would live on, and that thought filled her with a sense of awe and terror in equal measure. As the alien ships continued their search, Vora's mind raced. She couldn't help but feel a deep, unsettling respect for the humans who had designed this dreadnought. Their courage, their brilliance, had ensured that even now, when all seemed lost, the legacy of their resistance was still powerful enough to stand against the greatest threats in the galaxy. Her fear was real, but so was her admiration. The alien armada was relentless, but humanity's technology gave her hope. It was as if the ship was not just a weapon. It was a reminder that even the most powerless could fight back, that even in the darkest times, humanity would rise, no matter how daunting the challenge. This was the true legacy of the humans, and it was one that Vora would never forget. As she continued her evasive maneuvers, her heart beat with determination. No matter what happened next, she knew this battle was far from over. The alien fleet was closing in fast, and the tension in Vora's chest tightened with every passing second. She could hear the thrum of the Dreadnought systems as they powered up. The AI's voice was calm but urgent. Weapons systems are now fully operational, awaiting command. There was no time for second thoughts now. The enemy was upon her, and Vora knew this was it, the final stand. She had one chance to survive, and only the Dreadnought's incredible power could give her that chance. The alien ships were massive, their sleek designs cutting through the blackness of space like a swarm of predators. Vora's small ship, once sleek and nimble, was no match for their firepower or their size. Her ship trembled under the pressure of the approaching alien barrage, but she didn't flinch. With a deep breath, Vora activated the weapon systems. Immediately, the Dreadnought's gravity cannon came to life, a powerful pulse shooting from the ship's core. The energy burst lit up the dark sky, a flash of light so bright it almost blinded her. Vora's hands gripped the controls as she guided the weapon with precision. The barrage of energy rained down on the alien fleet's front line, tearing through their ships like paper. Sparks flew and massive explosions erupted in the void. The alien ships had no time to react. The gravity cannon had obliterated the first wave in an instant, sending their debris scattering in all directions. But the enemy was relentless. More ships advanced, their weapons powering up, and Vora knew that the battle had only just begun. She glanced at her screens, where the number of incoming missiles and enemy ships steadily increased. The odds were stacked against her. The Dreadnought, while powerful, was not invincible. She had only moments before the alien armada would overwhelm her, and she knew that no matter how many they took down, she couldn't win this fight alone. Vora quickly switched tactics. She activated the eye-controlled robots, small but highly efficient fighters designed to protect the ship and engage enemy craft. They buzzed to life, zooming out from the ship's hull like swarming bees, darting in and out of the chaos. The robots took on the smaller alien fighters, tearing through their hulls with precision strikes. It was a brutal ballet, each robot engaging in swift, efficient combat. But even with their assistance, Vora knew the real test lay ahead. The battle raged on, explosions lighting up the black expanse of space like fireworks as Vora fought desperately to hold her ground. Her heart raced as she watched the alien ships close in. Their firepower was devastating, their weapons designed to pierce the toughest defenses. Her shields flickered and cracked under the assault, but the Dreadnought's technology held strong, just barely. Then the AI spoke again. Hyperdrive online. Engaging evasive maneuver. Vora's hands flew over the controls, activating the ship's hyperdrive just in time to avoid a direct hit from a wave of alien missiles. The Dreadnought lurched as it made the jump, the stars blurring into streaks of light as Vora shot through space at a blistering speed. She barely avoided the barrage, feeling the whoosh of the shockwave as the missiles exploded harmlessly behind her. She couldn't stop now. The alien ships were still on her tail, and the battle was far from over. As the battle wore on, Vora felt the weight of the situation pressing on her chest. The AI's voice was constantly in her ear, guiding her, but there was only so much it could do. The tide of battle shifted, and she knew she couldn't keep fighting forever. The Dreadnought's weapon systems were beginning to overheat, the robots were becoming fewer in number, and the alien fleet was overwhelming her defenses. A piercing alarm rang out, and Vora's heart sank as she glanced at the screen. The hyperdrive was down. The enemy was too close, and her shields were almost gone. It felt as if the universe was closing in on her. She glanced at the control panel, her mind racing. She whispered, "Is there another way out?" The AI paused, then responded, its voice as cold as ever. "Only one. Activate the self-destruct sequence. It will take out the entire fleet." Vora's blood ran cold. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. The self-destruct was an emergency measure, a final act of desperation. But could she do it? Could she sacrifice herself, her ship, and all the knowledge she had uncovered? It felt like her only choice. The Dreadnought had been humanity's final weapon, an insurance policy in case the galaxy fell apart. Now it was hers to command. Her thoughts drifted for a moment to her crew, her bondmates who had died in the past battles. They had sacrificed themselves for this very moment. Vora remembered their faces, the promise they had made to each other. They had never expected to survive, but they had fought with everything they had. It was a sacrifice born from duty, honor, and the hope that humanity's strength would carry on. With a shaky breath, Vora made the decision. She activated the self-destruct sequence. The countdown began, and she felt the weight of the decision press down on her heart. There was no turning back now. As she watched the alien fleet close in, she thought of the humans, their fierce will to survive, their undying fight for freedom. Even in the face of certain death, humanity's spirit would live on. The countdown reached 0, and in that final, brilliant flash, the Dreadnought unleashed its full power. The entire fleet was consumed by the explosion, and for a brief moment, space was lit up by a fiery brilliance. The sacrifice had been made. Vora had given everything, just as her people had. The final stand had been fought, and humanity's legacy would endure, even in the darkest of times. Vora could feel the Dreadnought's quantum shielding crack under the relentless pressure. The alien fleet, though battered, was not done yet. Their flagship, larger and more menacing than the rest, loomed like a shadow in the distance. Vora's heart raced as she looked at her damaged ship's console. The numbers were flashing red, the systems barely hanging together. The self-repairing system had worked wonders, but it could only do so much. She had no more time for repairs, no more options. It was now or never. She made a split-second decision. She reached for the weapon systems, her fingers moving with precision despite the chaos. "Aye," she said, her voice steady. "Prepare the nuclear strike." The AI acknowledged her command, and with a mechanical hum, the Dreadnought's most destructive weapon powered up. Vora felt a surge of determination. She wasn't just fighting for her life anymore. She was fighting for humanity's legacy. The enemy had underestimated Earth, but now they would see the full force of humanity's hidden power. The nuclear strike launched with terrifying speed, the weapon hurling through space toward the alien flagship. The moment it made contact, a blinding explosion erupted, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. The alien flagship, along with several other ships, disintegrated in an instant, their hulking forms vanishing into the void. The remaining enemy fleet scattered in disarray, their coordination shattered by the sheer force of the blast. It was a victory, but it came at a great cost. Vora's ship, already battered and scarred, now took the full brunt of the shockwave. The quantum shielding faltered, and sparks flew from several consoles. The AI's calm voice crackled in her ear. Hull integrity at 32%. Self-repair system engaged. But Vora knew that even with the self-repair system working at full capacity, survival was uncertain. She had to leave the battlefield now, or she would be caught in the aftermath of the explosion. She staggered to her feet and made her way to the bridge, her eyes fixed on the screen. The enemy ships were no more. The battlefield was littered with debris, and the once menacing alien fleet had been reduced to nothing. The pride in Vora's chest swelled as she watched the wreckage drift into the cold vacuum of space. Humanity had done it. Against impossible odds, they had held their ground. The alien threat had been eradicated. And in that moment, Vora understood the true power of the humans. Her mind drifted to the crew that had sacrificed everything to get her to this point. The bondmates she had lost along the way, their faces flashing in her memory. Each one had given their life for this final stand, and Vora could feel their presence with her as she stood among the wreckage. The loss was immense, but there was also a deep sense of pride. She had seen the humans' ingenuity, their strength, and their unyielding spirit. They weren't just survivors, they were warriors. Vora stood on the bridge, staring out at the destruction. The wreckage of the alien fleet floated peacefully in space, a symbol of humanity's triumph. She could hardly believe it. The humans had faced the most powerful alien armada in the galaxy and had come out victorious. They had no idea what humanity was capable of, but Vora now understood. Earth was not just a planet. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. But even as she reveled in the victory, Vora knew that this was only the beginning. The aliens had learned a harsh lesson, but there were more out there who would seek to challenge humanity. She couldn't help but wonder what the future would hold. Would the galaxy now look at Earth as an equal, or would there be others, more dangerous than the one she had just faced, who would come looking for revenge? There was no way to know. All she could do was send the message. Vora turned to the ship's console and activated the beacon. It was a simple device, but it would send the information she had gathered back to her homeworld. The beacon would carry data about the Dreadnought, the alien fleet, and the terrifying capabilities humanity had developed in secret. It was a warning, a call to her people to prepare for what was to come. As the beacon activated, Vora felt a strange mix of emotions. She was proud of what humanity had accomplished, but she knew that the victory was bittersweet. There was no telling how the rest of the galaxy would respond. Would they see humanity as a threat, or as a potential ally. It was impossible to say, but one thing was certain. Humanity's hidden strength had been revealed, and it was only a matter of time before the galaxy took notice. Vora stepped back from the console and watched the wreckage of the alien fleet drift away, the silence of space almost overwhelming. She couldn't help but feel a sense of loss as she thought of everything that had been sacrificed. But there was also hope. The fight was far from over, but humanity had shown its strength. The secret had been revealed, and the universe would never be the same again. As the beacon sent its final signal, Vora's thoughts turned to Earth. She wondered if she would ever see the true might of humanity unleashed. The galaxy had only seen a glimpse of what humans were capable of, but Vora knew one thing for sure. Humanity had only just begun to show its strength. And with that, the story of the Dreadnought and humanity's rise to power was far from over. As Vora made her way back to her home planet, her mind was heavy with the events that had unfolded. The journey had been long, and her thoughts kept drifting back to the awe-inspiring power she had witnessed in humanity's weapon. She had been a part of something greater than herself, something that would change the course of history. As her ship approached the familiar orbit of her homeworld, she couldn't help but feel a sense of both pride and anxiety. She had completed her mission, but what would happen next? When Vora arrived on her home planet, the news had already begun to spread. The beacon she had activated had reached her people, but it had also been intercepted by a far greater force, the Thalathian Empire. The Thalathians, known throughout the galaxy for their advanced technology and aggressive tactics, had long considered Earth insignificant, even weak. They had never feared humanity, believing that Earth's inhabitants were too primitive to be a serious threat. But the message Vora had sent was beginning to change their perception. At first, the Thalathian Empire had dismissed the idea of humans having anything beyond basic technological advancements. They had laughed at the notion of Earth even being capable of defending itself against an alien invasion. But as they analyzed the data from the Dreadnought, the ship that had single-handedly destroyed a massive alien armada, their view began to shift. The Thalathians had always prided themselves on their military superiority, but now, for the first time, they were forced to consider the possibility that humanity might possess something far more dangerous than they had ever anticipated. In the heart of the Thalathian Council, the message was being carefully examined. High-ranking officials, once certain of their empire's dominance, were now beginning to question their long-held beliefs. The Dreadnought's capabilities were unlike anything the Thalathians had ever encountered. Its powerful weapons, advanced AI, and ability to destroy entire fleets in a matter of moments made it a formidable force in the galaxy. The Thalathian leaders, who had long underestimated humanity, were now realizing that Earth might not only be a player in galactic affairs, but also the key to defeating an even greater cosmic enemy. The Thalathian Empire had been watching a dangerous threat rise in the distant reaches of the galaxy, an unstoppable force that had already destroyed countless civilizations. This threat, a mysterious and powerful enemy, was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Thalathians had tried to fight it on their own, but every attempt had failed. Their forces were stretched thin, and their most powerful weapons had proven ineffective against this new adversary. Now, with the discovery of the Dreadnought and its terrifying capabilities, the Thalathians saw a new possibility. Humanity, with its hidden strength and unyielding will, might just be the key to defeating this greater cosmic enemy. Vora had unknowingly triggered a shift in galactic politics. The Thalathians, who had once viewed humanity as a weak and insignificant species, were now considering an alliance with Earth. They realized that the knowledge contained in the Dreadnought systems could be the weapon they needed to stop the enemy that was closing in on them. The Thalathian leadership began to make plans to establish contact with humanity, to see if the humans would be willing to join forces in the fight for survival. But Vora, having witnessed the true power of humanity's will to fight, understood that this was just the beginning. As she sat alone in her quarters aboard her ship, Vora's mind raced. The journey had changed her. The once dismissive view of humanity that she had carried with her for so long was now gone. She no longer saw humans as weak or primitive. She saw them for what they truly were: formidable, resilient, and capable of unimaginable feats. The Dreadnought had revealed to her a side of humanity that she never could have imagined. And it wasn't just the weapon that had impressed her. It was the determination, the ingenuity, and the heart of the humans who had created it. The implications of her discovery were enormous. Humanity was no longer a species to be ignored. The galaxy was beginning to recognize the true power of Earth, and Vora knew that the future would be shaped by this revelation. The Exalathians, once so confident in their superiority, now had to reckon with the fact that humanity might be a force that could rival or even surpass them. The stakes were higher than ever before, and Vora understood that her journey had only just begun. She thought about the future of humanity. The Dreadnought had been a powerful weapon, but it was only a glimpse of what humanity could achieve. What would happen when Earth fully realized its potential? How would the galaxy respond to this new power? Would humanity be welcomed as an ally, or would they be viewed as a threat? Vora knew that the answers to these questions would come in time. But for now, she was certain of one thing: humanity's true power was just beginning to unfold. As Vora prepared to meet with her superiors and share the information she had gathered, she couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was on the brink of a new chapter. The Exalathian Empire was already preparing for what lay ahead, but it was unclear whether they would welcome humanity into the fold or see them as a challenge to their reign. Either way, the future of the galaxy had changed. And Vora, once an outsider looking in, now understood that humanity was no longer something to be underestimated. The galaxy was about to face a new, formidable force, and Vora was ready to witness the rise of humanity on the grand stage of the universe.